Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today I'm here with my buddy, Derek Grandfield. He's a real estate investor, landlord, property manager. He has a whole bunch of stuff going on up in Wichita, Kansas, right in the middle of America, basically. So we're going to be talking about his business a little bit and some epiphanies and evolutions that have kind of happened over the years. So Derek, great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Looking forward to it.
Good to see you again. You just saw you at Investor Fuel last week, and I know you've been in the group for a few years now, so always great to see you and catch up. So, hey, before we jump in, we're going to kind of talk about your business today and some of the lessons learned, and you've learned some lessons over the years, right? We all do, some hard ones sometimes. But before we kind of jump into that, tell us a little bit about your background, like how you kind of got started. And I know you had some relatives in the business, which is kind of rare. There's a lot of people that I know that got into real estate and there's no history of them. They just were a teacher or a firefighter or a corporate, had a corporate role and then found their way into real estate. And you actually were on some level kind of born into that a little bit, I guess. But tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so grew up here in Wichita, Kansas, my whole life. And so from a young age, I was around real estate. My mom's mom, they were farmers out in, west of Wichita. And my grandpa hurt his back, and my grandma was like, well, I need to get a job. So she was actually one of the first saleswomen at the Chevy dealership here in Wichita and did well. I think she did that for like 20 years. And then when I was a kid, we spent a lot of time with our grandparents. My mom was a single mom. My dad passed away in a car accident before I was born. So we, would go to one grandparents to the other. My mom worked a lot. She, was really dedicated to taking care of us. And so I would kind of roll around with my grandma, like 8 years old probably. And she had rental properties. She was just a hustler. She would go out, she would sell houses, she would buy houses, put carpet paint, sell them, make like 30,000. And so I saw her doing that, and I was like, man, this is interesting. And fast forward, 10 years, graduating high school, getting into college, went to business school and started doing marketing. I was like, man, I love this. I love the sales side of it, and didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I had a professor that was in pharmaceutical sales and the marketing side of it. And she goes, you'd be good at that. I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. And so I had a friend that was in it. Funny story. My wife was never going to do that. She was going to start a medical spa in Colorado or something. And, asked me if I was wanting to interview for this job, and I had a semester left of college. And so I was like, well, I can't yet, but my wife, or soon to be wife, I think we were engaged at the time. I was like, Jenny would be interested, got the job, and she was a rock star, did great in that industry. And then a year later, I got into it and worked for 2 years and started to like, all right, Jenny, we need to buy some rental properties. My grandma had these. She's got like 10 left. They're all paid off. She makes like 15,000 a month off of them. Doesn't have a retirement. That's it. And we were already starting to build a retirement plan with our, jobs. And I was like, we have that. That's just, gravy on top. Let's do some real estate. So she heard a radio ad that I had heard. Everyone probably hears it. It was the Than Merrill Fortune Builders.
Oh yeah.
She goes, yeah, she's like, hey, if you want to do this, let's go check it out. I was like, I'm in. I don't need any convincing. So we went to that.
It was all just supplemental. It was never really a consideration. I mean, I don't know when, I don't want to steal your thunder, but at some point you realized maybe we could do this full time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was more of, hey, let's just buy these and kind of have it completely passive and not, we'll work our career. And yeah, at some point it was like, okay, we can do this. And, I think it was after joining your group and getting around the right people where I was like, man, we're good at this. we can scale this. I understand the business now a lot better. So that was instrumental when I did quit. Tony Javier was in your group. He's from Wichita.
Yeah.
I called him. I was like, hey, I need a mentor. I need somebody to kind of guide me through some of these things that I'm not quite sure about. And so he's like, well, I've got a group. And so I joined it, and then, met Michael McDonald, and he was in Investor Fuel. And I think I started doing Investor Machine direct mail
Yeah.
when I was still working, and it was hard to answer calls and didn't really have a CRM, didn't have anything set up. And so joined the mastermind group, and that was really where I was like, okay, I can do this. And that's when
Yeah.
four
So
years
you
ago.
used to, before you left your job. So what year was that roughly for 2025
Uh,
years? What was that?
yeah, so 2021, right around there, my son
Okay.
was
And at that
born.
point you had like how many rental properties did you have and how many deals a year were you doing at that point?
So we
Roughly
had,
just, yeah.
yeah, probably around 40 to 45 ish.
Okay.
Well, actually,
Okay.
no, we had just bought, right before I quit, we had just bought a 128 unit to
Okay.
renovate, and it was
Yeah.
a big, big job.
Yeah. So you had a pretty significant, footprint, I guess, especially for your market before you even left your job. That's unique.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, it took 10 years to kind of build that up. And once we did, it was definitely like, well, we've got something here. We've got a lot of equity built up and just over time. So
Yeah. But you saw the blueprint for we could go do this full time and not skip a beat, right?
yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about that transition. Like, what does that look like? Because I think there's a lot of people that have a W-2 job, they have a job, and they want to move into real estate full time. So talk about. I mean, you had a little bit of a head start because you're already doing a fair number of deals. We're already had a fair number of rental properties, but just talk about the thought process there. And I want to talk a little bit about working with your spouse too, which I've done for 17 years. And a lot of people, especially those that are in corporate America or that are, have a W-2 job that are thinking about leaving, that's always a consideration of working with your spouse. And I think you'd probably agree it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
but
It,
there's pros and cons, right? And for sure. And so it could be a great thing or it could be a terrible thing. But anyway, talk about that kind of decision that you guys made to leave. I assume relatively lucrative careers to jump into real estate full time.
yeah. Yeah. We really had good careers. I mean, they paid for our cars, they paid for our cell phones, they paid for our internet, and then paid us well on top of that. And so it was definitely a challenge. Jenny and I both, we started looking at, all right, how can we do this? After COVID happened, I was just, I don't know, when I would go do sales and I was in front of people, facial expressions and getting to know people, and it changed a lot with COVID because we had to wear masks. We had people like, we're just opting out of seeing you. And whether the people that you took care of, the nurses, the different staff, whether they wanted that or not, the doctors just took the easy way out. So I was over that. And we kind of looked at, all right, what are we making? How many houses do we need to do? What kind of marketing spend do we have to have? Jenny's very analytical. She's one of the smartest people I know. So it made it a lot easier. And I'm a big risk taker, so I'm like, all right, let's figure it out. So kind of looked at how we're going to replace our income, what that looks like, and how many deals we need to do, and kind of reverse engineered it, and then took the leap. It was hard. It was the beginning of the year after Christmas break. They gave us a week and a half off, and man, I was driving down the road dreading that call to my boss because I love my boss. I love the people I worked with, but I was just, done. So made that call, and it was a huge weight off my shoulders, and got started, got going into it. It was nice having the rentals that we had built up because it was perfect, the timing with real the interest rates. So we refinanced everything all together, pulled out a little bit of equity, but kept the same payment. And like, all right, we got a little cushion here. Let's roll. So that's kind of how we did it.
And your wife did not go full time into the business. That's fairly recent, right?
Yeah. So last August, my goal that I had set for myself, because obviously I wanted her to be in this because she's a huge part of the business. Like, if we didn't have her, we'd be in trouble. So
Yeah.
Yeah, August of 2024, she made the leap, got her license to help sell some of her deals. We've got an awesome realtor, Chris Green, that I've been friends with for a long time. He's been to some of the investor fuel meetings with me. Does a little investing on by himself, but he's great. So they work closely together. But it's helped on some of those deals that are tight that she can sell them. So she does that. She does kind of getting all of our books in order, does a lot with our property management of keeping all of that going. So she's very talented in a lot of different aspects, and it's been nice having her. So my goal was a 3 year point, and we hit it, and here we are.
Yeah, that's great. Any tips on working with your spouse that you want to share, or lessons learned, or things not to
Yeah,
do? Maybe 'Cause I've got
yeah,
some of those too, but I'm curious on your side.
right. Yeah, I think at the beginning it was hard because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, she's gonna come in, she's gonna change everything how I'm doing, or you know, it was just kind of a irrational fear, I think, that everything had to change. But I think the biggest thing was communication and kind of shutting it off to, ooh, there's so many times we're working at night or we're going on dates and it's like, hey, this is happening. We start talking about it, and then we get in, we're not an argument per se, but we're just not happy. We're thinking about some of the things that are going wrong, or I think we should do it this way. She thinks we should go this way. And so separating that personal time that you're together and just focusing on each other rather than work all the time. So good communication and separating the
Are you
work
guys able
life
to do
thing.
that? Because we're more likely to say, or we used to. We don't even try anymore. Like, hey, we're gonna go out to dinner. Like, let's not talk about work at all, and that lasts about 30 seconds, and we're talking about work. So, are you guys able to
Yeah.
make that separation?
I think so. I think
Yeah,
our kids have so much going on. So we talk about that. We talk
yeah,
about like what we want for our future, that kind of stuff. And there's always a little bit of work. And I try not to bring up because for me, I'm like, oh, it's on my mind. Let's talk about it. And this was an issue or this is something. And so trying to keep it, if it is about work, trying to keep it somewhat light.
yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think trying to divide up to not talk about things as much as you would otherwise. And I think also having clearly defined roles in your company, like who does what. And I think Jenny's probably similar to Lindsay, that she was more kind of back office operations, the financial side, and you're probably more of the front end, like acquisitions, dispo, that stuff. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because it's like, well, we have clear division of labor, and who does what and how you do it and stuff like that, and instead of trying to when I've seen people that are certainly partners, maybe more so not spouses, but like two friends or father son type things, and they have very much the same skill set and same demeanor. That's where it causes a problem, because they both suck equally at some stuff that needs to get done and nobody wants to do. And so I think based on what I know about your relationship and mine and Lindsay's, is we have different skill sets. That's kind of the yin and yang, which kind of works well. And so for anybody that's listening to this, that if your spouse or your partner or whatever is exactly like you might run into some challenges, because you both want to do the same things and you both don't want to do the same things, and somebody's got to do those things, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's been a plus for us because we are very, very different in what we like to do, what we're good at. So it
Yeah.
works out well.
Yeah. So I want to talk about property management too, because there's always this question of, should I outsource it or should I keep it in house? And from the very beginning, you guys kept it in house. I think you said you're managing around 310 doors or so now. So talk about I want to talk about just overall property management and how you make sure it doesn't distract you from the business of buying and selling. And then after that, let's get into, I know you do some unique things where you've sold houses off to people, but you retain some equity in that, an ownership position, and then you help manage them. So it's kind of turnkey ish, I guess, with a little bit of a twist that you're actually keeping some equity, which is, I don't know a lot of people doing that. And it's a great idea to kind of retain some ownership in that. But first, just talk about the importance, or not the importance, but how you kind of manage the property management side with also still doing a fair number of acquisitions.
Yeah. So I think that's a nice separate of the what am I trying to say? We separate the responsibilities there. So Jenny's
Yeah.
really good at that part of it. I mean, I get on the calls and I have, obviously input in a lot of that, but I try not to get too like caught up in it because it can be too much. And
Yeah.
so for us managing, when we started, we had just a couple well, our first flip ever, our whole goal was we were going to do 3 flips, take that money that we made, and we're going to buy a rental property, at least, a big down payment on it, and then do it again, and then do it again. And then I drove a lot for work, so I started listening to audiobooks, and I was doing the Burr method before I actually heard about it a couple years later. But we had our first ever property. We're like, well, the roof went bad. Let's keep it. And so we just refied a couple of them that we did right off the bat, and no cash out. It was great. And so we were like, well, now we got to rent these things. And we, got leases from friends or something like that. And kind of we'd get them leased up. And we had our crew that was doing our flips that they were awesome. They've been with us almost the whole time, probably 12 of the 14 years. And so we used them to do maintenance. And then we had, the major stuff done by plumbers. But we kind of self-managed it for a little while. And then, all right, we're busy. We're both busy with work. And now we need to hire an assistant to do some books, do some of these things. So we hired someone to do that was local. She was great. And she would do the leasing, and it wasn't too much. We had like 10 or so. So once you get them leased up, it wasn't too bad. And we had a Google voice number that would call one of us. And so we were pretty fortunate to not have a lot of major issues like over in the nighttime or whenever. So we did a pretty good job managing it. And then all right, we've got quite a few. This is too much. We either need to hire a management company or kind of build out a team. And so we interviewed my buddy's company, who they were great. They did a good job. But the thing we just kept coming back to is like, man, we really care about our properties, and we are good at this, essentially. And, from what we've been doing, we take care of them, we do the preventative maintenance. And so we thought, all right, are they going to get to them? Are they going to get them leased up? If we get it leased up in a month, are they going to take 2 months? And it just, I don't know. We just kept had that thought that it wasn't going to go how we wanted it to. So we're like, all right, let's build a team. So we started kind of building the team, getting the leasing or property manager to work for us directly. We've got basically 2 teams right now. We've got a one large multifamily that runs these Meadowlark apartments, and
Mhm.
so there's 4 people: property manager, leasing agent, and then a maintenance guy who we got so lucky with all of them. They're incredible. So they kind of run the show over there. We do weekly or biweekly calls, kind of depending on the time of year, and just go through everything, see where help's needed. We sub out some of the make readies if they're getting a lot of them, and then kind of mirror that on the other side where we've got some smaller multifamily and then a lot of our single family. We've got a rock star team on that side too. So it's been pretty great. And then our first major hire for Freedom Properties was our project manager slash just everything. You can put a lot of different names on what Tina does, and she's incredible. She really has helped scale our business by taking some of the scopes and being able to renovate large multifamily deals and getting the crews going, and then also doing our flip side of it. And so just all the pieces kind of coming to place has been really great. So we decided to start the G2G property management, which Jenny's last name was Goodfellow, my last name's Grandfield, so good to grand property management.
Oh, that's
Kind of
cool.
stealing off that book a little bit. Good to
Good
great
to
or
great.
whatever.
Good to
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So are all the properties that you manage ones that you either owned or have an ownership interest in are sold, or do you bring in clients from the outside as well?
Yeah, so essentially for the first several years, it was everything that we either owned or had a portion of.
Yep.
We manage, oh gosh, maybe 5% outside of what we own, which we'd
Okay.
like to do more of that. We're kind of getting to the point now with Jenny quitting and kind of getting all of our systems and operations and things in order. We would like to do more property management. Just because, I mean, we have a great team, we have great processes for it.
Yeah.
And so we'd like to do more of that. That's kind of one thing Jenny and I have been talking about is, all right, how do we build up that side of the business?
Yeah. I think, I mean, and I've always heard, obviously there's lots of people in our group that manage hundreds or thousands of doors, and some that, have smaller for sure, but, and some much larger. We've got some guys that manage 22,000 doors now. That's crazy. But,
Yeah, that's a lot.
I definitely have always heard that it starts to become, more profitable and easier to manage once you get above 100 or 150 doors. I mean, not that it can't be profitable below that. I think that was probably more of a control issue for you back then, right? But
Yeah.
then you can start to become more and more efficient and justify building out your team and stuff like that as you grow. And uh, it's not a business that I want to be in, but obviously I know a lot of people that are in it. And I know it gets, in theory, it gets easier as you grow. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think there's more things that come up, and as you grow it does get easier because you're getting more people that can be on call, because we really did have or we do have an amazing team where people were dedicated and bought into what we were doing, and really sacrificing their time when they were off to be on call. And so we're so thankful for that. And I think part of the business we're in and who we are, like, we're looking forward to giving back to
Yeah.
the team that we have, because we're not taking it all with us, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about your model of, because you're managing a lot of these, and just the model of selling these off to other investors, or maybe they're, want rental properties, but you're maintaining a piece of that, which is kind of unique. A lot of people that are in a turnkey type role will sell it off, and they might continue to manage it, or they might connect them with a manager, but you're doing it in a way to where you're retaining some equity as well. So can you just share a little bit about that model? Because I think it's intriguing for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a couple different ways we'll do that. Whether it's like I'll find some raw land and say, hey, we can develop this and turn it into this, and this is the unit, this is the rent that you can expect, and then this is the rent growth that you can expect. So we put that in a model, and either, hey, we'll develop this and we'll sell it, or we can develop it, we can partner with you. Where a lot of times when we partner with people, we want them to bring a majority of the money, since we're doing the acquisitions, doing the management, doing the development side of it. So you bring the money, we'll borrow it, kind of like we do with our lenders on some of these deals where, okay, well, here's our half of the down payment. A lot of times we can get it where we successfully bird a 36 unit that we had, where we had borrowed the money, refinanced it after we were done, and everyone got paid back, and everyone's in it with, a couple 100,000 in equity. And
Yeah.
so done it that way. And then, you know, um, a lot of the deals that we've had, we pretty much keep half the ownership or a third, or it kind of depends on how we're doing it. We're looking at a few deals now where, hey, I've got this. I've got a vision of how this can go, and I've got a buddy who's a builder, and I've got another buddy who kind of does what I do, and it's like, look, we can just all go thirds and do this all together. We'll do the development side. We'll just go in and we can get it built for less, and do it that way where we'll all stay
Yeah.
in. I'd like to do more of the turnkey where, I've got some friends that are like, I'd like to build up a rental portfolio that we would manage. And so finding those deals are a little bit harder in this environment because all the values have gone up. And in Wichita, the rents were very stable. They were good. They were solid, still are. But, when before I could buy a house for 100,000 and rent it for 1,000, now that same house is 150,000, and it's harder to pencil in, but there's some
Yeah.
creative ways to do that. So
Yeah, I think you're
we're
kind of
working on it.
structuring them similar to, conceptually, to a multifamily deal where you're the GP, you're retaining equity, you don't have probably much of your own money, if any, in the deal, and you're kind of responsible for making it all. I mean, you're making it easy for the folks that are investing in it, and you have a vested interest in that property performing too. I mean, back to the outsourcing your property management to a manager is, I've been in situations before where the manager had an incentive to cost me more money. Like, for example, they had maintenance crews that would do the maintenance, which they mark up, and so they have a vested interest in doing as much maintenance as they can, right? Or
Right.
or they're getting paid. In some instances, they're getting paid almost no matter what. And so once you have that ownership stake, I don't know what your management fees and stuff look like, but once you have that ownership stake, I presume you're managing them all and treating them just like they're your own because they are your own.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think that's a big thing too, just about like Jenny and I, the way we grew up, the way our values are. treating things like that and doing right by people. So
Yeah.
we definitely, that's kind of our goal in the business. Does it need to be done? And if not, how can we do it in a better way to, save some money for our person? Because honestly, a lot of the people we manage for are our friends too, and we want them to do well. We don't want them to be like, man, I do not like having properties because it's just constantly putting money into it, or
Right.
not getting the return you want.
Yeah, for sure. So, Derek, if how do you feel like things are going in? You're kind of in middle America there, still a pretty affordable market. I always like to get some context for how you're feeling like your market is going right now.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good market here in Wichita. We've kind of shifted the last year and a half. I've been looking at only buying. I mean, I'll buy anything, but I've some of the bigger deals. I'll discount them quite a bit more than I ever would before. I'm not as hungry to get those, that I know are going to sit. I know are going to take longer. So I've been focusing on first time home buyer, and then the second time home buyer that needs to upgrade and like get more space. They're having a kid, or they got some of that where they're not as set on interest rates staying at the 3 or 4% that they got back 4 or 5 years ago. So
Yeah.
that price range is really moving well here. We put things on the market in those. We've got a lot of them that we've sold recently, and a lot of them coming to market that are in that price range, and lots of showings, full price offers. We've had a few that were bigger. Like I bought one that was out in the country on 10 acres. It was a cool farmhouse, and it sat for a little bit. It was also one of those deals. It was, if we really wanted to do it how we wanted to, it probably would have sold a little faster, but out there you can only do so much and, put into it. And so, those are just a little bit slower, but overall the market's really,
Yeah.
pricing has held well.
Yeah, you're in one of those markets that still, even though it's gone up, is still relatively affordable housing, certainly compared to the coasts and a lot of other markets. I mean, even the values in Texas have like tripled in the past 10 or 12 years for the most part. And so it was an affordable market, and now it's quickly becoming less and less affordable just with the influx of population and stuff like that. It's the offset of growth is like, well, sometimes prices start to go up.
Yep, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So hey, you've been an Investor Fuel for I think about 4 years or so now. Would you mind just giving a brief testimonial on your experience with being a part of the group?
Yeah, yeah, I kind of touched on that at the beginning, but when I got into this group, I was kind of a newbie. I've been doing this a while, but I never really ran it as a business. And just being around the right people, the people that are doing it, the people that are going through the struggles like you are, that, they're from all over the country. So when you're sharing in your market, it's sometimes difficult. But even the guys that are close to you or maybe even compete in the same market, they're so willing to share. Um, you know, I love how you guys do the hot seats where you can fix, hey, here's the problems that I have, help me fix them. And so that's been really good. The relationships that I've, got over the last several years have been awesome. Really great people that are don't have to help you and don't have to take the time, but are so willing to. So that's been great. And I'm trying to think, like, you get what you put into it too. Like that's, Jenny and I were talking, we're spending a ton of money, and it was like our marketing was costing us a lot and the return wasn't as much because we were just going in all these directions. And, we had looked at like, man, what do we do? Do we keep, being in the group? Do we need to stop this for a little while? And, after talking to you, and I talked to her as well, like, look, you've got to get there. You've got to be in the room because I can tell you certain things that I'm getting, and she sees it too when I come back, like, hey, we're going to implement this, this, and this, and it works and it's great. So there's definitely a lot of value in being in the right room, and especially your room, Mike.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Glad you guys are a part of it. So, hey, if folks want to connect more with you, if they want to do deals, I know you work with private money lenders. There's a lot of things that folks can work with you on up in Wichita. Like, where can they go to connect with you?
Yeah, I'd love to, connect with more people, especially the private lending. You want to do some rental property, partnering here, that'd be awesome. I'm on Facebook, just my name, Derek Grandfield, on Instagram, on Twitter. And let's see, you guys can email me if you want. It's derek.grandfield@gmail.com. And it's spelled DEREKGRANDFIELD.
Awesome. We'll add some links down below in the show notes. So thanks for
Cool.
hanging out with us today, Derek. Tell us a little bit about your in the belly of the beast that you guys are running up there.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the time, Mike, and it was good
Yeah,
to
yeah.
catch up.
Yeah, great to see you. Guys, hope you got some good value from today. It's always interesting learning from investors that are doing this, like their transition into the business, how it's evolved into not just fix and flipping, some new construction, some partnerships, some property management, and all that. So I think it's one of the best parts of our mastermind is you get to really see what's possible of getting around folks for a few days every quarter and maybe more frequently at other events and things like that. Just really kind of opening up, hearing how other people do things. It really kind of gets your mind flowing as to what'll work for you. So appreciate you joining us on today's show. We'll see you on the next one. Take care. Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.